large firms are losing clients to the mid-sized firms. If your team has technical competence, I think the AI advantage is stunning right now. Model Context Protocols, MCPs, are the big things for accountants this year. MCPs will be able to do many things that have taken us hours and hours to do in a matter of a relatively few minutes. Right now we have to hook so many different systems together. Your HR system, scheduling system, finance system, and so forth. If there is an MCP available for each of those, that you can have real-time queries against the data that return the answers. And the MCPs can use the frontier models.
Our friend Doug Sleater, he talked about this chunkification and this pendulum that swings with firms going better solutions versus going to the suite because, well, they all connect. And with this explosion of all these solutions, is this healthy innovation? Is it fragmentation, or maybe a mixture of both? Maybe it's not an or, it's an and?
I think it is an and. A great question on that front, because
Welcome back to the AI Native Accounting Podcast. I'm your host, Kacee Johnson, principal at Be Radical. Before we jump into today's conversation, I'm really excited to share some news with this community. Since launching the podcast in June, the reach and engagement has grown far beyond what we ever imagined. If you've been following along over the last couple of weeks, you've probably seen the announcement that myself and co-founder Bebe Kim launched the AI Native Accounting Foundation. It's an independent initiative designed to move the profession past AI hype and into practice through education like this podcast, research, a scholarship fund, and recognition. As part of that launch, we're introducing the AI Native Accounting Awards. There are 4 awards in total, 2 recognizing firms that are leading real AI transformation, and 2 recognizing individual practitioners who are pushing the profession forward. Nominations are now open at ainativeaccounting.org. You can visit the site to nominate firms, practitioners, or even yourself, and you can subscribe to our news channel and stay close as we roll out what is next. This work would not be possible without our founding sponsor, Digits, the world's first AI native general ledger. So I'd just like to thank the Digits team for believing in the importance of an independent profession-first movement and for helping to make all this possible. Now, I couldn't have asked for a better guest to have with us on this first podcast under the foundation. Today, I'm joined by Randy Johnston, someone many of you already know as one of the most trusted, pragmatic, and experienced voices in accounting technology. Randy is a longtime educator, strategist, thought leader, and a partner at NMGI as well as K2 Enterprises. And he's someone who's quite frankly helped firms navigate every major technology shift over the past few decades. He's also a member of the new AI Native Accounting Foundation's Advisory Council, helping guide the awards and scholarship programs to ensure that we're recognizing real progress and not theater. So, Randy, thank you so much for being here. It's great to have us with you today. Welcome, my friend.
Well, thank you, Kacee. I couldn't be more pleased to be invited and to talk about that, and frankly, to help out on the foundation. So very excited for what lies ahead for this community.
Thank you. It's exciting. I'm really looking forward to kicking it all off. But I have a question for you. So, every year you and Brian and David, you guys all take the week in Las Vegas to venture out to CES. I've never been. Every industry looks to that event to try to figure out what the latest technology trends are. What happened at CES this year? What were you genuinely excited for? Not demos, but like signals. What are you seeing from that?
Yeah, it's real clear, Kacee, that it was like AI everything everywhere all the time. So we could start with that clear hype. But some of it was real, some of it was not. The other thing that was clear that was there everywhere were robots. And the robots were in every shape and fashion, and many of those were AI powered as well. But the real signal was that the innovation attempts were many and probably more far-flung than I've seen. But the other side of it was the products were not as real. The minimal viable products were well below my minimum viable product to be on the show floor. And that's a pretty big deal because many of the products that are there, they're imminently released. And I think many of these won't be ready for release in quite some time, even with AI acceleration in their development. So there's a little bit of that hesitation in my voice, as you can hear, because many of the products we looked at, we just kind of walked away shaking our heads saying, well, that's a product that probably is half baked or not anywhere near ready for prime time. Now we saw some other things that were just really quite phenomenal, and we can talk more about those. But bottom line, AI everywhere, robots everywhere.
So a little bit of underwhelm on some of the earlier, technologies and initiatives. Was there anything that you said, "Wow, this is cool," or you related back to our profession and said, "This might disrupt or impact us"?
Hands down, absolutely was. So now think about that other extreme, because multiple vendors, including Qualcomm and Ugreen, both had network attached storage type of devices that had local AI processing available to you. So, what I'd like for you to think about is data center in a box, but a little tiny box that could live down the hall, if you would, and keep everything private and get you very quick results. And the indexing on both of those boxes was pretty phenomenal. So, as you know already, Kacee, this year there's going to be many AI products released that have document management at the core, because we're getting ready for a new generation of document management and workflow this year. Well, these doggone products will look inside the documents, do automatic classification and automatic filing. So just think about throwing it over the wall and poof, it's filed for you. It's named automatically and so forth, all running local. That's true for documents. It's true for pictures and videos. Cheap, cheap also. The one from Ugreen as an example was $1,500. Well, a lot of network
Wow.
attached storage devices aren't that inexpensive. So this has a lot of core processing on it and classification in it. So that was clearly a real product that I looked at and said, wow, this is possibly even better than running foundational models in some sort of a interface.
So I'm gonna nerd out with you on this a bit because when you say think about a data center in a box down the hall from you, one of the big, my husband worked in data centers for a long time. One of the big benefits was multiple data centers and redundancy and being able to fail over to other locations. So is that a downside of this technology then?
No, it's actually an upside also, because now we get distributed processing at the edge, and these AI boxes can talk to each other through secure tunnels. So you can have a very small firm, two office location, and have two boxes, one of which runs in each location. They do all the local AI processing, and they can back up each other on the fly. So it turns out this is really true distributed processing, which I've been wanting, well, I hate to say it, since the 70s, when I first understood how beneficial distributed processing could be for redundancy. The same way with redundant data centers, it's like, I just want that to happen sooner rather than later. So
Hmm.
these boxes can do that. Further, Kacee, it's been clear as I've played more with open source solutions in these various areas that it may be time for some of the open source products to return. Most of the AI industry is built on open source products to start with, and the ability to do this remote communication and the redundancy, it's really maturing exceptionally fast.
Interesting. All right, I gotta do more research in this, but thank you. Is that
Well,
I've never been to CES, so I'm always like, all right, I know Randy kicks off his year every year doing this. Like, what stood out to him and what was just like, all right, that's underwhelming.
Well, it turns out, yes, there was a lot of underwhelming, but there were some, normally you see many, many things that are just overwhelming to you. We saw enough viable products that Brian and I concluded, yep, it's still worth going back next year. And you are correct. We had the two Davids, Dave Cieslak and David Primes, were also there. And each of us got to experience different vendors, showcases and whatnot. But one thing that was also interesting this year is the major vendors kept their presence in the back rooms. So it was more of an invited in experience to see IBM, Lenovo, or HP, or Dell, who all had presence there. The other one that was really a kind of a breakout presence was Amazon, because they also had their new satellite service, that they had the dishes there, and I hadn't seen the dishes up close and personal. So it will be a SpaceX competitor, and I think it'll be very viable, as it turns out. But they had all of their various product lines there. And we also talked to the primary managers of the Amazon Kindles. So the people who are in charge of that for Amazon were at the event, but it gets even a little stranger, because we had recommended the TCL Next Paper last year as a wonderful replacement tablet for our accounting friends who have been using remarkable tablets or Apple iPads, that type of thing. These TCL Next Papers were gorgeous last year. Well, there was a new generation of these products, which Brian and I were quite interested in also. And it turns out we were watching an accountant from Michigan. We're working with one of these Next Papers, waiting in line for our turn. And when we got there, these two guys were watching us, and we started talking about how they could be used, and they started asking questions, and they were interested in how to make the Kindle more attractive to accountants for similar usages to the TCL Next Paper or the iPad. It was one of those serendipitous moments. We walked away, thought, well, I'm glad they asked intelligent questions, and they chased us down. And then they introduced themselves, at which point we said, oh, okay. And they invited us to the Amazon booth. So Brian and I made the trip back to talk to these product managers and look at all the various Kindles and the capabilities and so forth. And, I won't go too far beyond that, because, as you know, so much of the time I'm under non-disclosure on things, but they showed us things that they asked us not to talk about until they became real. And it's like, that was very cool, right? That's what happens, Kacee, is at CES, and frankly, a lot of these big tech shows, when you repeat, you see some people over and over, and you build relationships over time. So clearly, that happened with Scott Francis from Rico, the scanner company, with me years ago. But Scott's worked CES the last few years. So with the new Rico IX 2500 receipt scanner that's just recently been released, that was at CES, and that was one of his jobs, was to show that product. And frankly, last year, their meeting camera was one of the best things of show.
So you brought up, and obviously this is a podcast all about AI in accounting, and you brought up use cases there at CES. So I do want to dive in a bit. We're at one of those points of the year where everybody's looking at what are going to be the major trends. We've got all of the prediction and the forecasting happening. So you work with a lot of the tech vendors as well as with the firms. And I'm curious, from your vantage point, you know me, I like to break things into categories and really look at maturity and practical application. Where do you see this AI and tech maturing the fastest when you look at different practice areas, or based on different, categories from these vendors? What's maturing the fastest in our space?
Well, this one is a hands down. And if your listeners only learned one thing today, this is going to be it. Okay. Now, last year, the big thing was agentic AI. I get that. And agents are still going to be around. But model context protocols, MCPs, are the big things for accountants this year. We saw MCPs at Acumatica Summit. We saw MCPs at NetSuite. Brian and I just affirmed how we could run MCPs, model context protocols, MCPs, on top of QuickBooks Online, Xero, Zoho Books. How many would you like me to name? Because pretty much every accounting platform that we've got out there is like that. Stephen Edgington from Dext has an MCP running for Dext with Dext Assist and so forth. So here's the way to think about it. MCPs replace APIs or application program interfaces, and they allow AI engines to talk to our accounting platforms. You can run more than one MCP at the same time, so the need for exporting data to Excel or into BI platforms, that's going to go away or become less as I would see it. Further, you'll be able to talk to these engines so you can make a query. Show me the top 10 expense categories that I had and sort them in reverse order and so forth. And even from a fraud detection, um, identify if this document has been duplicated in the system. Just talk to the MCP and it can figure those type of things out. So, in the old days where we tried to make products run together, we'd have a general ledger system and we'd have reporting with reporting tools. By my
Mhm.
count at one point in time, there were 94 reporting tools. So, Kacee, I'm smiling as I'm thinking about it because of your old, model where you'd basically looked at the whole accounting tech ecosystem and you had all those
Mhm.
reporting tools and you were trying to keep all those categories. What I'd like you to picture is every product that you can think about in the past will likely have an MCP written over the top of it, and you can have multiple MCPs active at the same time and query against them in natural language.
Interesting. Now, the MCPs are built by the vendor, or would a firm create an MCP and lay it over something?
For most of us, I believe that the vendor will create the MCPs because they understand their platforms the best. But can you absolutely create your own MCPs if you'd like to? Yes. And there are a number of the MCPs that are available in either open source format, or like I said, they're simple enough to create that I believe that you can do it. You will have to have API access if you're ready to do that. But the net here is that you can expect that almost every platform will have it. Now, I think one of the most fascinating demonstrations that I've seen of AI and MCP in the past 6 months was at the CCH Walters Clear conference last year, because in a 100-minute session, they spent half of the time with a Microsoft explaining how the MCPs worked, and then they built 5 different agents on top of the MCP in the remaining 50 minutes, one every 10 minutes. One of the ones that I was most impressed with, Kacee, was client onboarding. And they basically showed how the MCP could talk to multiple different systems at the same time, extract the data for a client onboard, and write into the Walters Clear practice management world. It was
Hmm.
bloody impressive. And as you know, I'm an old programmer and I'm in the thick of a lot of this stuff. And it's like, I'd really like to have that tool because I can see how this is going to work. And, the best way to have your listeners and community thinking about this is MCPs will be able to do many things that have taken us hours and hours to do in a matter of a relatively few minutes. But we're going to have to learn how to use this new tool. It's not going to be a super big lift, but it is going to take some training and it's going to take some thoughtfulness to do it right. And we are going to have to put data governance into place because these MCPs could write data back, but that is very risky.
So that's the biggest opportunity you're seeing right now, and like the what's maturing fast. What is a use case that we just keep looking at and thinking like, when is this going to get to where it? Like I see firms chasing a lot of tech right now because they've got this real pain point, but it's maybe the technology is just not there yet.
Well, let's take a real simple one that's really hard to do right. Okay. Uh, Firm dashboards or client dashboards.
Hmm.
Right now we have to hook so many different systems together. Perhaps your HR system, perhaps your scheduling system, perhaps your finance system, and so forth. What I'd like you to picture is that if there is an MCP available for each of those, that you can have real-time queries against the data that return the answers. And the MCPs can use the frontier models, so the Claudes, the Geminis, all of the different products that are out there, the Chat GPTs, the Copilots, and so forth. And it is likely, Kacee, this year that Microsoft will release Agentic 365. So we're anticipating that. But What I'd like you to maybe answer your question more clearly, think about anything where you have to hook multiple systems together, and there's been a lot of data manipulation, digital plumbing, trying to make all this stuff work. The MCPs naturally do it. They try to resolve it. They don't get it right every time right now, but they're getting it right so much of the time. It's just like I'm cheering for them. Go MCP, go.
Now let's get into a little bit about different firm sizes and what they're
Mm,
actually doing today, because I think we come across a lot of that tipping point, right, of the profession that's very progressive and leaning in. But you're out there working with these firms and helping them with their AI strategies and helping them to manage all of their tech stack. If you break out, let's just say the licensed CPA firms, 45,000, 44,500, however many in the US. You've got the top 100, obviously, and then you've got the G400, the mid-sized firms, and then you've got another 44,000 small firms. So if you break it out into those three distinct segments, what are the small firms doing right now today? What
mhm.
are the mid-sized firms, where are they at in their journey? And then the large firms who have deeper pockets and more resources, where are you seeing them at?
Yeah, so let's go after those segments. Now, Kacee, I'm going to remind you, and you now know this because I've shared the results with you in the past, that Brian Tankersley and I did the accounting firm operations technology survey for, a good number of years. And we actually broke them down a little finer at the low end with sole practitioners and what we call small firms, 2 to 15 people, then medium firms, 15 to 75. So notice in the way you're thinking about this, mid-sized firms may go down to the 15-20 range up to about 75. So my DMARC tends to be at about 75 people, but there's a lot of firms that still consider themselves mid-size even though they're 200 people, let's say. So when I think about small firms, they tend to have very little um, financial resources to pursue these, but they are nimble. And what the new AI is doing, and I think MCPs in specific will help, but so will agentic AI, is that small firms will be able to build very competitive AI uses and have already begun doing so. Now, the trick here is that the big firms can actually do programmatic development on these
Mhm.
platforms. And what I believe can happen with the small firms, and is happening, is that they can define a business case that they have. Let's just say it's client accounting services, and they want to provide advisory insights into profitability. They can hook these AI tools and are hooking the AI tools in these various platforms to allow the advisors and the clients to make queries in an ad hoc fashion. So a progressive small firm today, uh, probably number one, a simple thing, has an AI policy in place. Number two, they have probably already progressed beyond prompt training. So, there was a lot of effort around prompt engineering in the last 2 years. I'm actually almost to the point that I don't believe that prompt engineering will be as important as I might have thought 2 years ago. Have been reports within the last week that perhaps the current releases of the frontier models have already got general intelligence. The whole goal was getting to AGI, artificial general intelligence, and by some measures, the most recent models are actually hitting that. That's pretty interesting. They're not sentient yet, but they do
Yeah.
have general intelligence. So the reason they're leaning into AI first is because their cost of entry is not very high. The licensing that they have to do, the training dollars that they have to spend, the development that they have to do, not over the top. And so, in terms of the actual users versus those that are talking about it, I think in the small firms, and by the way, Kacee, I'm guessing most of these numbers low from what people are trying to indicate to me, but this is
Mhm.
my observation in firms that I talk to. I would say that a good 25% of the small firms are actively doing something today.
That's great to hear. That's good,
Yeah, it's really beautiful. I mean,
especially if you think that's on the low end. Yeah, I like that.
I am pretty sure it's on the low end, and sometimes it's a little bit of light usage. The firms are still having a devil of a time measuring return on investment. But the small firms worry less about that because they know that they're saving the time. And even though I have read every AI survey that's been released in the last 60 days, at this time of year, I had more time to do that. And I didn't always agree with the methodology or the conclusions that were coming up. I think many things were overstated there. These small firms, though, they have a specific problem to solve and they're going after it. Sometimes they're buying it off the shelf. They're getting tax research from the Blue Jays, or they are spending the money with the Thomson Reuters for co-counsel, or Walters Kluwer on theirs, and so forth. They are not afraid to spend the money. Why? Because they know if they spend the money, they get time back. And even though they know they can't measure the ROI, they know they're not having to work quite as hard. They're not working as many hours.
If you looked at those 3 segments, would you say any I mean, you mentioned about small firms obviously are more nimble, so they can move faster, but would you say any of those 3 groups just seem to be, a little further ahead in their adoption and in their AI journey?
I think the large firms are probably further along.
Mhm.
The reason for that is they saw the opportunity sooner. They had fairly significant money to invest sooner. They dedicated resources sooner. Now, is it maybe as broad based across the firm? Maybe not as much. But if you ask the opposite question of me, Casey, who's the slowest to play? I think it might be the mid-sized firms.
Mm.
And the reason I think that's the case is many of those firms consider their risk profile. Uh, Many of them are still heavy in their compliance, tax, and audit practices. They're concerned about the impact of AI in the audit. And so that's making them tap the brakes a little bit. They know they need to do something, they'd like to do something, but here they tend to be talking about it a lot more. And the difference in the mid-sized firms, frankly, is that they are more risk averse than the small firms, and
Yeah.
they don't have as much resource as the big firms. So they're a little bit of caught in the middle. Is that the middle child syndrome? I don't know.
Hey, I'm a middle child. No, I get it. Their constraints are totally different. And, to your point, risk, I think capacity, culture, complexity, all of that takes takes a big hit on them. And a lot of them are growing so incredibly fast too. So
They are growing
prioritize.
stunningly fast. And when you're making a lot of money and you've got clients coming at you from every which way, because one thing that is clearly happening to the mid-sized firms is large firms are losing clients to the mid-sized firms. Large firms don't like to hear that, but that's where they're going. And in some cases, the large firms have uninvited clients. It's like, you don't
Yeah.
really fit our profile. And, the mid-sized firms are picking them up saying, wow, this is a really good client for us, very profitable. So they are picking up that overflow. We don't see, though, the mid-size overflow coming down to small firms. So that is not a path of profit.
Yeah, and I'm curious what your advice to the mid-sized firms would be. I mean, for me, it's like, well, okay, you don't have the same resources, staff, anything that a big firm has, and you've got to prioritize this. So to me, it's like, don't try to become experts yourself. There are many great consultants out there that get this space. You need to partner with somebody to help you through this rather than trying to tackle it alone.
Yeah, on the mid-sized firms, they almost have to minimize the places that they're going to spend, and they need to pick their biggest pain points first and fix that issue, or address that. Because, if we look at workflow processes, the mid-market firms tend to have a lot more issues around that. Now, the big firms do too. Small firms, not so much. But the mid-sized firms, they're often well in the middle of this process redesign, and they are changing platforms. They got all sorts of uh, complexities that they've experienced by growing larger. But the problem is because you got audit partners in charge and tax partners in charge, and in some firms, CAS partners in charge, they're each looking at their segment of the practice somewhat independently without as much resource as a large firm partner in charge of each of those practice areas.
And those competing priorities are such blockers for getting any real movement,
For getting
100%.
any real movement and getting any real traction. And the problem is, general AI doesn't play out as much in the mid-size firms. General
Mhm.
AI at the low firm and the smaller firms plays out a little bit better. But AI embedded into tools seems to play better in the mid markets because you can get AI-based audit tools and AI-based tax tools and the like.
Yeah. And I think too that they're so overwhelmed. Like a lot of the big firms, they can develop some of this on their own. Like you said, they have those programming powers. But and I see this with both small firm and mid firms. They're a little overwhelmed with just how many solutions are out there. And you mentioned about the ecosystem stuff many, many moons ago. I had created for Accountex that giant ecosystem, and then I did a smaller one at when I was at CPA.com. But back then I was tracking, 700, 800 vendors in the space, and I haven't done that, one of those exercises in years, but I bet we're well into 2,000, 2,500 vendors that are trying to sell either to or through the profession. I mean, am I somewhere in the ballpark?
I think you might be low there. But it was funny as you were making your guess at 2000. I'm thinking, yeah, but she's going to guess low, and boom, you're low. Uh, and that's not a. I'm not trying to sound critical of you on that, Kacee. You're so
No,
well
there's a
embedded.
lot.
You're well informed. But I got to tell you, the buyers, it's like Top Gun. The bogeys are coming in from every direction, and they're almost fully defensive even when they're looking. And just to use some fairly standard numbers from my world, 60 plus practice management products, 90 plus portal products, uh, 20 plus AI tax products. And I know I'm real low there now based on new ones that have also been introduced. 20 plus AI audit products, 70 plus client accounting services AI products alone. So notice I just gave you
Mhm.
over 100 AI products in the three major categories, and I know I'm low on those numbers too. So, oh my, what do you do? Do you stay the course with the big vendor like Thomson Reuters and Walters Kluwer, or do you break out and do a best of breed? And an oddity that's happened, and I think it's because of AI, Kacee. I think the firms are actually reflecting on going back to single publisher suites, which is amazing to me because I just thought that would not happen. But the big vendors have released AI platforms, and there's safety in those. And I didn't say it's cheap, didn't say it was best, but there's safety. It's a risk mitigation strategy, I think.
Our friend Doug Sleater, he talked about this, gosh, at least a decade ago, if not longer, about chunkification and this pendulum that swings with firms going best in class to the new entrants, the more innovative solutions who are honestly just building better solutions versus going to the suite because, well, they all connect. And to your point, TRCCH, at least we know our tax prep and the practice management, they're going to talk to each other seamless, right? So that's interesting. You feel like the pendulum is kind of swinging the one way, but I'm curious. So with this explosion of all these solutions, is this healthy innovation? Is it fragmentation or maybe a mixture of both? Maybe it's not an or, it's an and.
I think it is an and. A great question on that front because we're seeing increased fragmentation. As an example, yesterday I reviewed another new tax research tool. It's like, really? So is that my ninth one that I'm aware of right now for AI based tax research? There's actually more than that. But the fragmentation is so severe as a buyer. How do you know what to pick and what's going to be around for the long term. So you are correct that, Doug's observation with the chunkification, this swing between best in class and integrated suites, it goes back and forth. And I am seeing a swing back to integrated suites right now. But there's one other little twist that I'm just going to illustrate with a conversation at the NetSuite event this week. And I ran into a long-term acquaintance. So, I'm a NetSuite designer originally. So all of the guys that I worked with originally, Brian Chase and Craig and so forth, were all there. So I got to talk to a lot of old home week, and we were talking about NetLedger. But one of the guys said, look, I had a 4-year-old copy of NetLedger that I was running, and I used AI to create a 2026 data set running my old accounting software. And he said, in this world now, I can use AI to set up the interfaces between these systems, and it knows how to do it. And I have done that repeatedly as well, Kacee, where, if I want to interface system A to system B, I tell the AI, I've got this system, this version, that system, that version. Tell me what the interface is, write the code. And it
Hmm.
does it with pretty good accuracy most of the time. So if your team has technical competence, I think the AI advantage is stunning right now. If your team does not have a lot of AI technical expertise, you won't be able to take advantage of many of these AI tools. And this brings me back to agents. It brings me back to MCPs. It brings me back to, the new AI ledgers and so forth.
When we're talking about how many of these there are and the firms trying to wrap their arms around it all, I know that you're hopefully we're not giving it away too early, but
You're not.
okay, good. All right. I know that you're building kind of an ecosystem oriented solution. Tell me a little bit about that, and I'm also curious just how you're thinking about this massive ecosystem differently today than what it was 5, 10 years ago.
Oh my, it's a head clearer for me. But here's the platform. We have built a platform called C2 Account. And what it does is it allows visibility and fit across a wide variety of vendors with scoring systems done by firms that are on the platform. So, in effect, what we've done is kind of a crowdsourced scoring mechanism that allows the users of systems to possibly express some of their satisfaction and dissatisfaction and get matched with products that fit them better. It's almost like the Tinder, if you will, of accounting software products. We believe that the system has a nice integration of vendor capabilities, firm needs, and we believe that we actually have a reasonable approach for the talent pipeline included. So there's multiple moving parts on this system, Kacee. And, our basic approach is to allow um, access for users on a freemium model where they can get a lot of value at no charge and benefit the whole profession. So, in my world, you know me long enough, I would love to do things where everybody wins. And having really loved the profession for so many decades, this was a way for me to give back and simplify all of this selection process and confusion. And along the way, capture a little bit of intellectual property and transfer it to a new generation.
Well, and I think it just marries so beautifully what we're, our mission and what we're trying to accomplish with the foundation. So kudos to you for doing that essentially like brain dump of everything you've collected and all of the analysis that you do on this ecosystem. But all right, I've got some lightning round questions for you.
Okay.
What is one AI capability outside, of course, MCP that is exciting you more than it scares you?
Um, I'm going to say uh, voice query, trying to keep it very
Okay.
simple
Yeah.
because, there's a lot of people that don't type very quickly. And if you can just talk to the doggone AIs and they respond, you know, I'm sorry, Hal, we can't do that. No, they're actually going to do wonderful things for us, and we get a chance finally to say, well, what happens if you do this? And I've been using this type of voice query with AI, and man, it's exciting. It's like I wish I was young again.
For those of you that are not aware, Randy is quite the Broadway buff. His daughter is a big part of that as well. He's always in New York. So, Randy, what is the best Broadway show you think you've seen in the last 2 years?
Well, I do get a chance to see a lot of shows, so you're correct on that. But I am going to go with The Outsiders.
Oh, okay.
Well, many of our listeners have read the story. I've met the author now. I think there's just a lot of value in that particular story. And frankly, the uh, actors involved just did a phenomenal job. Music was solid, scenic was solid. So I don't know how you could have a much better show. I like to go to Broadway and be entertained and leave everything behind for a little bit. And I've had several of those shows.
Well, next time I'm in New York, I'll have to check it out. And last but not least, I'm just curious, I've pulled back on my travel so much, but you're still a road warrior. What is the thing you like most and the thing you like least about being on the road so much?
Love meeting people face to face and getting to listen to their experiences and learning from them. And I don't think you get the same experience when it's remote. Uh, there's just something about being next to people and listening to them and observing. The least, I'd say it is the inconveniences, it's the cancellations. Uh, I can put up with a lot of discomfort, so you got different temperatures, and so that doesn't bother me. But it is just some of the inconveniences that happen from cancellations, let's say weather and those type of things.
Well, I do hope, I know you're on the road right now, so I do hope your travel is uneventful for the rest of the week.
Well, I could have gone to my second least favorite on the most recent, and that's bad coffee on the road.
Oh, yeah.
I love to go home
Gotta
and
keep it, keep you fueled. You need that. You need
yeah,
quality
exactly. And
coffee.
make the good coffee at home, but oh my, there just seems to be a lot of oh my. Well, as George Takei of Star Trek fame says, oh my. I've had a lot of bad coffee out there right now.
Well, Randy, thank you so much for joining us for such a grounded and thoughtful conversation. Your ability to cut through all the noise and the hype and focus on what actually matters for firms is, I think, exactly what this moment calls for. So we appreciate your time.
Thank you. A pleasure to work with you and your listeners today.
And to our listeners, thank you for spending your time with us today. If this episode resonated, I encourage you to visit ainativeaccounting.org to learn more about the new foundation and the awards that are open now. And this is your opportunity to recognize firms and practitioners who are truly adopting AI responsibly. As always, thank you to our founding sponsor, Digits. If you are exploring what it means to become an AI native firm, visit digits.com to learn more about the world's first AI native general ledger. You can find all episodes of the AI Native Accounting podcast on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms. Until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and stay ahead.